Liberty Darr, welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So you're a reporter currently with the other paper.
Yes, I am.
Tell us a little bit about you and how you came to do that work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I originally am from Buffalo, graduated with a journalism degree some years ago, and I just happened upon a ad that was posted for a reporter position with the Vermont Community Newspaper Group. And I applied and had a great interview with our then publisher and editor, Greg Popa. And I moved to Vermont 3 weeks later.
Wow, so you were in school in Buffalo.
I had graduated.
Yeah?
Yep, and I was doing some marketing and some type of those things in Buffalo, in the city at the time. But I really wanted to get into reporting and news reporting. So when this position came along, and I thought to myself, hey, Vermont seems great. So
What is it about reporting and journalism that's important to you? What drew you to that?
Yeah, I think I've always been somebody that loves to solve a puzzle. So when you have, big stories, you're kind of always looking for these puzzle pieces to put together to craft a story, and, also just making sure that people are informed of the truth and being able to make informed decisions.
And were you interested specifically in local journalism? Is there something like what are the kinds of stories that you want to be telling?
Yeah, I think I was always really interested in print. That was something I did an internship in Buffalo working for a big local magazine there. And I loved the idea of print journalism. Locally, I think that's where people can make sort of the biggest difference sometimes is, going within what's within reach for you. So I think it's really important now more than ever to be tapped into your local news, and you can kind of really see the effects of what you write when you write locally.
Yeah. So you come to South Burlington. You've been here for how many years now?
I have been here for 2.5 years.
Yeah. What's it like to come to a community where you don't know the people, you haven't lived before, and try to learn the ins and outs, the nitty-gritty of their local politics?
Yeah, it was very difficult, I think, for the first year. I'm newer to the South Burlington beat. I picked it up this past summer. So, we have a really small but super efficient team of local journalists who have luckily been doing it so much longer than I have. So all of those questions about, public records requests and all of those different things, they were able to really help me tap into that and how that works.
So these are all your primary sources. Yeah, what are the sources that you're using? How are you finding out what's going on?
Getting stories, yeah. That's the thing about your local paper is odds are we are at every single city council meeting, DRB meeting, planning commission meeting, school board meeting. We're probably sitting in the back seat watching everything that goes on. So that's mostly how I get a lot of my stories. And then you kind of can connect the dots to some of these smaller issues that sometimes turn into these bigger issues that you get to report, longer form stories on or things like that. And in going to all of these meetings, you're also, meeting people and connecting with people. And so sooner, people start to reach out to you. They know you by name. They kind of know, a little bit about you. So, yeah.
Yeah. Where are there examples of that? The stories that you said, things where you're sitting and you're going like, that's an interesting conversation that somebody wouldn't hear if I wasn't going to report on it in the room.
That's a hard one. I think there's so many.
Most of the time, it's just pro forma, the everyday machinations of local government.
Yeah, I think there's always an angle in, conversations at school board meetings or city council meetings that you can expand on. So for example, in South Burlington, they were kind of undergoing this big project, this land use project. It was called the Longview Project, and it was going to look to conserve 32 acres of land in South Burlington, but also build some affordable housing units. It was in partnership with the South Burlington Land Trust. And kind of looking at, how the city has conserved land historically in that area. So we were able to kind of take that little news nut graph, but expand upon, okay, what is the Open Space Fund, which South Burlington has and uses to purchase, conserving land. Where has most of this land been conserved historically? And so, taking kind of what can be a small issue, but, expanding on it in that lens.
Yeah. Do you hear from readers? Do you get feedback from folks that the stories had? What? Yeah.
We get a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
South Burlington is really engaged in their local politics, and I think that's what's incredibly unique about Vermont. And I assume a lot of the New England states, with Town Meeting Day and all of these things, I didn't come from a place that had that. So people read their newspapers here. They read their locals. They read everything. They read the news. And that's not, always the case. So we get a lot of feedback, whether negative, positive, somebody doesn't like the angle we took or somebody loved the angle we took. I would say we have, we've got letters to the editor quite frequently in all of our papers. But particularly in South Burlington, I think the other paper has been a bit of a staple in the community for a long time. And so it shows up in people's mailboxes, every week.
In the last 2 years, what's a fun story that you've reported on?
The last 2 years has been, for South Burlington, I would say education reporting has been one of the highlights. For me, it has been an interesting past couple years for education and education financing, and this topic of affordability for Vermonters has been, I think, kind of the highlight for me.
Do you understand what's going on? Do you have a sense when, this is the topic everybody's talking about?
Yeah.
Do you feel like I could jump right in there and talk about it with the best of them?
If you would have asked me that last budget, at the beginning of last budget cycle, I would have said absolutely not. And I don't think, our job as reporters is to not only understand the information, but be able to break it down in a way that the general public can understand it and grasp it. So I would say I have a pretty good handle on, all of these topics that are happening sort of at the State House. But it's complicated. It's definitely really complicated.
Yeah. Well, locally in Burlington, in South Burlington, you mentioned Town Meeting Day, and certainly we have March 4th. Town Meeting Day is coming up, and there's not a lot of contested elections in South Burlington. We have one for City Council, and then we have two articles that are on the ballot. Give us a little snapshot, the elevator pitch, if you will, around what voters are looking at, what they voted on their ballot.
Yeah, so it was the city budget is at $55 million, which is slightly less than it was last year, although people are going to see, a slight increase in their municipal property taxes. I think it's around 3.3%. With this associated budget. But I think what everyone was really looking at this year was the school budget, which was a 7% expenditure increase over last year at $71.5 million. So I think that was kind of the big one that people were going to the ballot box to sort of.
It was voted down twice
last
in 2024.
Year. Yep, it was voted down twice. It passed on the third try. And this year was arguably just as difficult for a lot of the school officials. With that budget came about 15 reduction in full-time equivalent employees with the district. Lots of feedback from residents. We're super tapped into school board meetings leading up to the Town Meeting Day vote for sure. So.
And if this doesn't pass?
Then they have to do it again.
Yep.
So they will have to make even deeper cuts, unfortunately, to the district in order to bring that spending down.
And South Burlington is one of the few districts in the neighboring area that's seeing an actual increase in pupils. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Tax rate increase?
I believe so. I think the towns that are associated with CVSD are also going to see a bit of an increase. With this budget, the $71.5 million budget that's voted on town meeting day, it's about an 8.1% tax rate increase for people.
Well, we'll see tonight. I mean, when people watch this, we'll see tonight how they vote on the South Burlington. And where will you be tonight on town meeting day?
I will be waiting patiently for those results from Holly Reese over at the city clerk's office. So I will be tapped in and then very quickly scrambling to decide which avenue of my next story will be, yay, the budget did pass, or it did not pass. So.
And tell us a little bit about, there's also the issue of the school director. South Burlington voted to increase from 5 to 7 their school board membership.
Yep.
But we don't have a full board yet.
We do not have a full board. I am getting word, we just got a letter to the editor actually last week that somebody is launching a write-in campaign for that last seat.
Yep.
So we had 5 people actually petition to be on the ballot, with 1 that was absent. So, so somebody did decide to launch a write-in campaign.
Do you remember who that is, or?
The name is escaping me.
Yeah, people could look at
Yep.
the other paper and check that out. And then we have one city council election that is contested.
Yep.
Lydia Diamond and Elizabeth Fitzgerald is our incumbent
Yep.
there, right?
Yep. And then we have Tim Barrett, who is throwing his hat in the ring again for another 3-year seat. He is currently city councilor, the chair.
So you're at these city council meetings, you're seeing the turnover. Of course, we lost Helen Reilly, Meghan Emery, more recently than that, Matt Coda, who'd been on the city council for some time. I may be forgetting somebody. What is the relationship between the city councilors like, and what's the conversation like?
Yeah, I think they have a really fluid board. Prior to covering South Burlington's municipal news, like city council meetings, that sort of thing, I was covering the South Burlington School Board for 2 years. So kind of comparing how the school board has...
Those were some contentious years. You had some contention in the school board,
It was
right?
some a lot of contention, a lot of turnover for that board for the last, 2 years. So being able to kind of see how fluidly the city council works together, kind of compared to their counterpart at the school board, it's interesting. They have a lot of really good dialogue. I think, me personally, Elizabeth Fitzgerald brings a lot of knowledge. I think she's newer on the board, if I'm remembering. She ran last town meeting day to fill that seat. So they all have different opinions about everything, but have to make a decision ultimately as a body together. So it's interesting.
Yeah. When you look at South Burlington, what do you think some of the things that South Burlington residents are concerned about, or should be concerned about, that they may not be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think what we hear most is affordability. Is the education spending and financing has been a huge one these past 2 years. I think South Burlington is not unique also from the rest of the state that is grappling with a housing shortage. And how do they balance this desire to conserve natural areas of high priority, but also build housing that people can afford to live in? Or encourage housing that people can afford.
There are folks that are living, there are South Burlingtonians living outside by the gone places in South Burlington.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of that? What's that impact like on South Burlington? What's it like on the people that are living in tents in little corners?
Yeah.
It's not as obvious as Burlington. It doesn't get talked about as much.
I would say it's not as obvious. I actually had done some reporting last month around the South Burlington Police Department and how, since Chief Sean Burke, who is now leaving in March to go to Burlington, had really led this implementation of community outreach in their police department. So South Burlington is one of the 8 municipalities, I believe, who is part of the Howard Center's community outreach team. So they actually have a Howard Center employee at this police station from 8 in the morning until 5 that's responding to calls of like mental health issues and all of those different sorts of things. Not only that, South Burlington's police department works really, really closely with the Community Justice Center in the city. So close that they actually share a building. So the police officers and the employees at the Community Justice Center are literally crossing paths like every day. So I think the last time I had talked to Chief Burke, he had given me a data point that annually South Burlington is responding to around 1,000 unmet social services calls a year. Wow. So I think the police department and, with the help of the city manager's office have really spearheaded this, really interesting relationship around community outreach.
Yeah, we kind of jumped right into that. South Burlington, Chief Burke leaving, that's a big sort of loss for the city of South Burlington. What's going to happen next?
So their deputy chief, Sean Briscoe, is stepping in as acting chief, and they will in March be holding a bunch of community listening sessions to gather what the community wants what they want in their next chief, and then they will kind of put out a big national search for the next chief. So
is this, you think he's interim for a while in Burlington, or was this a retirement step down? And not that you know, but I'm just curious if you have a sense of that.
He has so it's a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
My sense is I don't know.
Yeah.
I am not sure what the plan is. I haven't actually talked to Chief Burke in a few weeks, but I'm not sure what he has planned, but I know that the contract he did sign with Burlington, he has indicated he will not be seeking the permanent chief position, and it's only a 2-year contract.
Yeah. So other things that rise to the fore that South Burlingtonians are paying attention to, that you're hearing from them, that you think the City Council should pay attention to? What else is going on?
Yeah, I think affordability, development, where to put development, all of those things, and I also think South Burlington has been a leader in climate change, initiatives in the past since they adopted their climate action plan. So South Burlington adopted an actual climate action plan in 2022, which stated that they want to reduce their 2019 carbon emissions by 60% by 2030.
So taking the number from 2019,
exactly,
and which is a good number, not 20.
Right.
2020 is an anomaly.
Right.
And then they just hired a climate action plan
manager.
Yeah.
One of the first.
You reported on that.
I did. Yeah. One of the first of its kind in the state, actually. So Bettina is there. She will kind of be executing a lot of things that are laid out in the climate action plan, whether that be how the city spurs, different ways to move around, not using your car as much. How can the city, in its ways, work to kind of combat climate change? I think climate change is kind of the basis for a lot of these different moving parts that South Burlington has going on. So
is there anything next for you on the horizon? You stick around South Burlington for a little while?
Yeah, I think so.
You're enjoying this work and doing this local reporting?
I am very much so.
Are there projects for you in the works?
I always have some fun, my own kind of writing projects that I have. But as far as news, South Burlington keeps me pretty busy, week in and week out. So yeah, I will definitely be sticking around for a while.
Great. Well, Liberty Darr of the South Burlington Other paper and a writer in her own right, thank you for joining us.
Yes, absolutely.
And, thank you all for watching.
Thank you.